there, and welcome to Hypersleep Voyager. Tonight, we drift into a hidden realm, a world unseen by the naked eye. It exists quietly in a patch of damp moss or suspended in a single drop of dew. On the surface, it seems so fragile, so ephemeral. Yet beneath that ordinary exterior lies an ancient mystery. A tiny, eight-legged wanderer that has walked the earth long before us. It possesses a tireless strength, surviving the hottest fires and the coldest void of space. While the world rushes above, it hums with a slow, resilient life. A vast universe tucked away in the microscopic. If you enjoy these quiet journeys into the unknown, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, just settle in. Let the weight of the day drift away. Allow your eyes to grow heavy and breathe. Let's begin. Tardigrades can survive without water for decades by entering a state called cryptobiosis, and they expel moisture from their cells. They curl into a tight, dry ball. This form is known as a TUN. It resembles a microscopic grain of sand. In this state, metabolism stops completely. Life pauses. There is no breath. There is no movement. They simply wait. Imagine a speck of dust floating in a sunbeam in your room. It is quiet. It is still. The tardigrade becomes like that dust. It creates a glass-like coating to protect its insides. It does not fight the dryness. It accepts the pause. It rests in a deep biological sleep. The world continues around it. Seasons change. Empires rise and fall. The tardigrade remains unchanged. It waits for the water. It waits for the soft touch of moisture to wake up. It is a reminder that silence is not an end, but merely a way to preserve life until the rain returns. Most tardigrades measure less than 0.5 millimeter in length. They are invisible to the naked eye. They live in the thin film of water that covers moss. This water is their ocean. It is a vast world to them. They walk on 8 stubby legs. They move slowly through the damp green forests of lichen. Their claws grasp the plant fibers. They are grounded. Think of the moss growing on a stone outside your window. It is soft to the touch. It holds the dampness of the night. Within that green velvet, these creatures graze. They are small enough to be safe from the heavy footsteps of the world. They do not need vast territories. They do not need to be seen to exist. In this sense, we see that greatness does not require size. The complete universe can exist within a single drop of morning dew. Tardigrades have survived exposure to the vacuum of open space. Scientists sent them into orbit. The air was stripped away. The pressure dropped to nothing. The cold was absolute. Yet they endured. They did not fade. They did not freeze. They did not break. They simply held their breath. They floated in the great silence of the atmosphere. Imagine the darkness of the night sky through your window. It is heavy. It is vast. The tardigrade drifts there without fear. It is a traveler in the endless black. It turns its body into a fortress. Radiation washes over it. The cold surrounds it, but the life inside stays warm. Its tail is hidden and secure. You could say that life is stubborn and robust, capable of holding its ground even against the infinite emptiness of the stars. Tardigrades can withstand extreme doses of ionizing radiation. Their cells contain a unique protein. This protein acts as a shield. It wraps around their DNA. It prevents damage before it happens. If the DNA breaks, they repair rapidly. They mend the tears. They stitch the coat of life back together. Think of your own skin healing a small scratch. It is a quiet process. It happens while you sleep. It happens without your command. The tardigrade does this on a fundamental level. It protects its history. It guards its future. The harsh rays pass through them. The energy dissipates. They remain whole. They remain calm amidst the storm. This reveals that true strength is not about being unbreakable, but about the quiet ability to repair cells when the world tries to pull us apart. Tardigrades have existed on Earth for over 500 million years. They predate the dinosaurs. They have seen the continents drift apart. They have watched the oceans rise and fall. Through 5 great changes they have walked, and they march slowly on their 8 legs. They do not change. They do not rush to evolve. They found a form that works. They stayed within it. Think of the ground beneath your feet. It is ancient. It supports you. The tardigrade is part of that deep foundation. It is an elder of this planet. It carries the memory of the early world. It is still here. It is still living. It is a reminder that survival is a long, slow rhythm, and we are never truly alone in the river of time. Tardigrades can survive temperatures exceeding 150 degrees Celsius. This is well above the boiling point of water. Most proteins unravel in such heat. The structures of life usually break down. Yet the tardigrade endures. Imagine a pot of water on a stove. The steam rises. The bubbles form and dissipate. The heat is intense and consuming. The tardigrade does not panic. It does not flee. It creates a barrier against the thermal energy. It sits within the fire. It remains cool in its core. It protects the delicate machinery inside. The heat passes over it like a wave. It waits for the temperature to drop. It waits for the cool air to return. It is a reminder that inner stability can withstand the strongest conditions of the outside world. High pressures found in the deepest ocean reaches are not enough to affect a tardigrade. They can withstand pressure 6 times greater than that at the bottom of the Mariana Trench. At those depths, water exerts tons of force per inch. It squeezes everything. It compresses air to nothing. The tardigrade's body is already compact. It is solid. It does not buckle. Think of a heavy blanket pulled up to your chin. Think of the weight of the atmosphere pressing on your shoulders. It is a constant embrace. The tardigrade accepts this weight. It lies comfortably in the crushing dark. It moves slowly under the burden. It is at home where others would fade. In this sense, we see that pressure is not always a force of change, but merely a condition of existence that can be endured. These microscopic invertebrates inhabit every continent on Earth. They are found in the rainforests of the equator. They are found in the frozen valleys of Antarctica. They live in the soil of your garden. They live in the roof gutters above your head. They are everywhere. They are your silent neighbors. Imagine the dust settling on a bookshelf. Imagine the sand on a beach. They are there. They travel on the wind. They ride on the feet of birds. They establish their homes in the quiet corners of the planet. They do not seek attention. They simply exist. They occupy the spaces we ignore. They fill the world with life. You could say that the most resilient things are often the most common, weaving a hidden web of life that wraps around the entire globe. Tardigrades feed by accessing plant cells with sharp structures called style TS. These style TS are like tiny needles. They enter the wall of the cell. Then the tardigrade uses a sucking pharynx to ingest the liquid contents. It is a simple meal. It is a liquid diet. They do not seek carb sources. They do not fight. They find a strand of moss. They attach themselves. They drink slowly. Think of sipping water through a straw. Think of the nourishment entering your body. It is a quiet transfer of energy. The plant gives. The tardigrade receives. The cycle continues in the undergrowth. There is no waste. There is no greed. They take only what they need to survive. This reveals that sustenance is a gentle act, a necessary rhythm that connects the smallest creature to the energy of the earth. Female tardigrades often lay their eggs inside their own shed exoskeleton. This process occurs during molting. The old skin attaches. It becomes a loose sac. The female deposits the eggs within this casing. She leaves them behind. The old skin becomes an nursery. It becomes a shield. Imagine taking off a heavy coat. You leave it on a chair. It still holds the shape of your body. It still holds your warmth. The tardigrade uses this cast-off layer to protect the future. The eggs rest in the safety of the past. They are guarded by what came before. They develop in the dark. They wait to hatch. It is a reminder that what we leave behind can still serve a purpose, providing shelter for new life to begin. The locomotion of a tardigrade involves a slow, lumbering gait on 4 pairs of legs. They do not run. They do not jump. They utilize a draw-like system to move their limbs. Fluid pressure extends their legs. They grasp the surface with tiny claws. They pull themselves forward. It is a steady rhythm. Step after step. Watch a bear walking through a forest. It is heavy. It is deliberate. The tardigrade moves with that same dignity. It traverses the landscape of a leaf. It climbs the mountain of a sand grain. It is never in a hurry. It has nowhere to be but here. It moves at its own pace. In this sense, we see that progress does not require speed, and a slow, steady journey is enough to cross the world. Tardigrades lack respiratory organs and exchange gas directly through their cuticle. They do not have lungs. They do not have gills. Oxygen permeates their skin. It enters their body fluids. It reaches every cell by simple diffusion. They must remain covered in a film of water to breathe. The water acts as a bridge for the air. Think of your own breathing. The air flows in. The air flows out. It is invisible. For the tardigrade, the entire body breathes. It is open to the environment. It absorbs what is around it. It is permeable. It relies on the moisture of the world to sustain it. If the water dries, the breath stops. The wait begins. It could say that we are deeply connected to our element, unable to separate our own life from the atmosphere that surrounds us. Researchers have sequenced the tardigrade genome to understand their durability. They found a high number of genes dedicated to stress tolerance. These genes produce unique shielding proteins. They clamp down on sensitive molecules. They prevent them from falling apart. The blueprint of the tardigrade is built for defense. It is written for survival. Imagine a book with thick leather covers. The pages are safe inside. The words are protected from the dust and the light. The tardigrade is that book. Its code is ancient and secure. It carries the instructions for entrance in its cells. It reads them when the challenge comes. It executes the commands. It goes the laws. This reveals that life is not just about growing, but about possessing the deep, written wisdom to endure when the seasons turn against us. Tardigrades possess a unique protein known as the damage suppressor. This protein binds directly to their DNA strands. It forms a protective cloud. It shields the genetic code from X-rays. It prevents the molecules from breaking. Scientists transferred this protein to human cells in a lab. The human cells became stronger, resisted radiation. Think of a coat of varnish on a wooden table. It seals the wood. It keeps out the rot. The tardigrade creates the seal from within. It wraps its most precious essence in a chemical embrace. The danger bounces off. The core remains untouched. It holds the library of life together. It does not let a single letter fall away. It is a reminder that true defense often comes from wrapping what matters most in a layer of gentle, unbreakable care. The process of reviving a tardigrade requires only water. The dried tea absorbs moisture from the environment. The cells swell. The body uncurls. It is a reversal of time. The metabolism sparks back to life. The heart begins to beat again. It does not struggle to wake up. It simply accepts the fluid. It drinks the world in. Imagine a dry sponge on your kitchen counter. You pour water over it. It softens. It expands. It becomes flexible again. The tardigrade returns to the living world just as easily. It does not remember the long sleep. It does not count the years it was gone. It begins to walk as if it never stopped. In this sense, we see that life is patient, always ready to begin again when the conditions are right. Tardigrades possess an open circulatory system called HMO. They do not have complex veins or arteries. A fluid called hemolymph fills their body cavity. It bathes every organ directly. It carries nutrients to the cells. There is no central pump pushing this fluid. The movement of the body drives the flow. Every step the tardigrade takes moves the blood. Every bend of its back stirs the waters within. Think of a bottle of water in your hand. When you walk, the water moves. It splashes against the sides. The tardigrade lives by this rhythm. Its own motion sustains it. To move is to feed. To walk is to live. The internal ocean washes over the organs. It keeps them clean. It could say that action creates its own energy, and moving forward is what keeps the vital currents flowing. Many tardigrades species exhibit a biological trait called the utele. They are born with a fixed number of cells. They do not grow by creating new cells. They do not divide their tissues. Instead, the existing cells simply increase in size. The infant looks exactly like the adult. It is just smaller. The blueprint is finished at birth. There is no chaotic growth. There is no changing form. Think of a balloon being inflated. The material stretches. The shape remains the same. It just takes up more space. The tardigrade expands into its life. It fills out the form it was given. It respects the boundaries of its own design. It matures without altering its fundamental nature. And this reveals that we are often born with everything we need, and growth is merely the act of expanding into our true selves. To survive freezing, tardigrades replace water with disordered sugars. This process is called vitrification. It prevents ice crystals from forming inside the cells. Ice is sharp. Ice presses against membranes. The sugar turns the insides into a solid glass. It freezes time without freezing the structure. The body becomes a statue. It is hard. It is preserved. Imagine a jar of honey left in the cold. It becomes thick. It becomes slow. It does not freeze into pieces. It simply stops flowing. The tardigrade becomes a living jewel. It waits out the winter in the suspended state. The cold cannot reach it. The frost cannot break it. It holds its shape against the biting air. It remains perfect in the ice. It is a reminder that sometimes the best way to survive the cold is to become solid, still, and impenetrable. The body of a tardigrade is oft uncovered in sensory bristles. These fine hairs detect changes in the water, and they feel the flow of the current. They sense the presence of obstacles. They act as an early warning system. The tardigrade is blind to many things, but it feels the world deeply. It knows the texture of its path. It navigates by touch. Think of finding your way in a dark room. You reach out your hands. You feel for the walls. You feel for the furniture. You move with care. The tardigrade moves through the microscopic forest in this way. It is connected to its surroundings. It listens to the water with its skin. It is never truly lost. In this sense, we see that vision is not the only way to see, and feeling our way forward is a valid path through the dark. Some species of tardigrades reproduce through parthenogenesis. Females produce eggs that develop without fertilization. They do not need a mate. They create clones of themselves. A single individual can populate a new habitat, or it becomes many. The lineage continues unbroken. It is restored. The mother passes her entire self to the daughter. There is no mixing. There is no dilution. Think of a plant taking root in a jar of water. It grows new leaves. It becomes a new plant. It is the same life in a new place. The tardigrade carries this power within. It is self-sufficient. It carries the future of its species in its own body. It does not wait for another. You could say that within every individual lies the potential for a multitude capable of building a world entirely on their own. The time a tardigrade spends in the end state does not count towards its lifespan. A tardigrade might live for a few months in the active world, but it can exist for decades in the dry state. It pauses its biological clock. The aging process halts. The cells stop degrading. It steps out of the flow of time. It avoids the end by refusing to live for a while. Imagine a book placed on a shelf. You close it. The story stops. Years pass. Dust gathers. You open it again. The story picks up exactly where it left off. The words have not faded. The tardigrade is that story. It waits for the reader. It waits to be continued. It preserves its youth by embracing the stillness. This reveals that rest is not a waste of time, but a way to extend our journey far beyond its natural limits. The nervous system of a tardigrade consists of a dorsal brain and paired nerve clusters. It is a simple ladder of connections. It does not support complex thought. It does not harbor worry. It processes the touch of the moss. It senses the brightness of the light. The tardigrade reacts only to the immediate moment. There is no anxiety about tomorrow. There is no regret for yesterday. Imagine a single wire carrying a clean signal. It hums with a steady current. The tardigrade operates with this clarity. It receives the world directly. It moves without hesitation. It exists in a state of pure response. This reveals that peace is oft unfound, and simplicity in a quiet mind can navigate the world just as well as a loud one. The cuticle of a tardigrade is a complex, multi-layered suit of armor. It is made of chitin and proteins. It provides structure to the soft body inside. It holds them together against the pressure. As they grow, the shell becomes too tight. They must shed it. They split the skin open. They step out of their own shell. Think of a snake shedding its skin in the grass. Think of taking off a heavy coat at the end of a long day. The tardigrade leaves the old form behind. It is open for a moment. It is soft. Then the new skin hardens. It becomes safe again. It is a reminder that growth requires us to be open, and we must shed our old defenses to make room for the new. Many species of tardigrades are nearly transparent. You can see their internal organs through their skin. You can see the food in their stomach. You can see the eggs waiting to be laid. They hide nothing. They have no secrets from the light. The sun passes right through them. Imagine a glass marble rolling on the floor. It catches the light. It is solid yet clear. Tardigrade is like that living glass. It blends into the water. It becomes part of the medium it lives in. It does not block the view. It exists without obscuring the world. In this sense, we see that clarity is a form of camouflage, and being open is the best way to be at one with the surroundings. Tardigrades can survive in changing salinities through a process called osmobiosis. If the water becomes too salty, they change their shape. They become impermeable. They refuse to let the salt draw the water out of their cells. They maintain their internal balance. They hold their ground against the chemistry of the ocean. Think of a boat floating on a rising tide. The water changes. The waves change. The boat stays afloat. The tardigrade navigates the changing chemistry of its own. It does not let the outside world corrupt its inside world. It stays pure within. It stays hydrated. You could say that integrity is the ability to remain true to oneself, no matter how much the environment tries to change us. The claws of the tardigrade are curved and sharp. There are usually 4 to 8 claws on each leg. They act as anchors. They grip the surface of the moss. They hold on when the water rushes by. The world of a drop of water is turbulent. Rain is a heavy fall. Currents are strong. The tardigrade locks itself in place. It digs in. Imagine holding onto a railing in a surge. Your grip is tight. You do not let go. The tardigrade holds on with that same determination. It stays rooted. It refuses to be washed away. It claims its space. In this sense, we see that stability is an active choice, a refusal to be moved by the chaos of the passing surge. When oxygen levels drop drastically, tardigrades enter a state called anabiosis. They swell up. They become turgid and immobile. They reduce their metabolism to the bare minimum. They float in the low oxygen water. They wait for the air to return. They do not gasp. They do not struggle. They simply lower their demands. Think of a candle flame flickering low when the air is still. It does not go out. It just burns quietly. It saves its fuel. The tardigrade saves its life by doing less. It endures the lack of air by becoming still. It waits for the fresh current. This reveals that sometimes the only way to survival lack of resources is to slow down, preserving our energy for the moment the wind returns. The name tardigrade means slow stepper, but they are commonly called water bears. This is due to their gait and body shape. They look like tiny bears with 8 legs. They have paws. They have a lumbering walk. Yet they live in a drop of water. They roam a forest of algae. Imagine a bear walking in the mountains. Now shrink that mountain to the size of a grain of sand. The tardigrade is the king of this tiny kingdom. It patrols its territory. It is fierce in its own way. It commands respect in the microscopic realm. It is a reminder that dignity is not a matter of size, and one can be majestic even on the smallest of scales. Despite their resilience, tardigrades are food for other microscopic creatures. Amoebas seek them. Nematodes seek them. Even other tardigrades may seek them. They are part of the cycle. They are not endless. They are food for others. They give their energy back to the system. Think of the leaves falling in autumn. They feed the soil. They nourish the roots. The tardigrade plays its part in this great exchange. It consumes and it is consumed. It is not separate from the danger. It lies within the web. It accepts its place. It is a reminder that we are all connected in a great circle, and every life eventually contributes to the sustenance of another. The color of a tardigrade often depends on the pigments in its diet. They eat algae. They eat bacteria. The green of the plant becomes the green of the bear. The orange of the spore becomes the orange of the skin. They are transparent vessels. They are painted by their sustenance. Imagine a glass of water taking the color of the tea you pour into it. It accepts the change. It does not resist the influence. The tardigrade carries its environment inside its own body. It wears its history. It displays its nourishment. You can see what sustained it. In this sense, we see that we are physically shaped by what we consume, and we cannot separate our own nature from the world that feeds us. Encystment is a process distinct from the dry tea you instate. It occurs when conditions are merely difficult, not harsh. The tardigrade contracts. It pulls away from its cuticle. It does not shed it. It secretes a new layer inside. Then it secretes another. It builds a nest of skins. It sleeps inside this multi-layered shell. Think of wearing 3 coats in winter. You are buried deep inside the heavy wool. Cold cannot find you. The tardigrade waits in this soft shelter. It is safe. It is hidden. It is a slow retreat from the world. It is a reminder that sometimes we must build walls around our softest parts to keep the quiet flame of life burning. The scientists revived a tardigrade that had been frozen for over 30 years. It was found in Antarctic moss. It was a piece of ice. It was a statue of time. When it warmed, it moved. It laid eggs. It continued its lineage. The decades of silence did not matter. The gap in time was nothing. Imagine falling asleep as a child and waking up in an old house. The world has aged. You have not. The tardigrade bridges the gap between eras. It holds its breath while history marches on. It ignores the calendar. It obeys only the warmth. This reveals that time is not a straight line for everyone, and life can wait patiently for its turn to speak again. In the microgravity of space, tardigrades display unique changes in their gene expression. They float. There is no up. There is no down. The fluid in their bodies does not settle. Their muscles do not fight the earth. They adapt to the weightlessness. They turn on genes to handle the stress. Imagine floating in a dark, saltwater tank. You are suspended. You are free of burden. The tardigrade accepts this new reality. It drifts in the void. It does not panic for the ground. It finds its center within itself. It carries its own gravity. You could say that true grounding is an internal state, allowing us to remain stable even when the world beneath us disappears. Tardigrades are evolutionary cousins to the Onwaichapora or velvet worms. They share a common ancestor. They share a soft, segmented body. They share clumsy legs. They are part of an ancient lineage of walkers. They separated millions of years ago. One grew large in the damp forests. One shrank into the moss. Yet they are kin. Think of a distant relative you have never met. You share the same eyes. You share the same blood. The tardigrade is not an alien. It is family. It is part of the great tree of animals. It belongs here. It is a reminder that we are all branches of the same deep root, growing in different directions but anchored in the same earth. The eggs of many tardigrade species are covered in complex, spike-like projections. These are not smooth spheres. They look like tiny stars. They look like ancient tools. The shape helps them stick to surfaces. It prevents them from slipping away in the current. It protects them from being eaten. The mother crafts this armor before the life begins. Imagine a seed with burrs catching onto a passing coat. It travels. It holds on. The tardigrade egg anchors itself to the future. It is born ready for a rough world. It is designed to stay. This reveals that preparation is the highest form of care, arming the next generation with the strength to hold their ground. The mate of a tardigrade is acidic and lined with microvilli to absorb nutrients. They swallow the liquid of the moss. It passes into this central chamber. The body breaks it down. It extracts the energy. The waste is stored. The useful parts become life. It is as slow as ores. It burns quietly. Think of a small fire in a hearth. You feed it a log. It gives you heat. The tardigrade maintains this internal fire. It turns the raw material of the world into movement. It turns water into will. It is a simple conversion. You could say that life is merely the act of transforming the outside world into internal strength, a constant cycle of acceptance and renewal. Tardigrades are often the first animals to colonize new or changed ecosystems. A volcano erupts. The land is warmed. The rock is bare. The wind brings dust. The wind brings tardigrades. They land on the cooling stone. They find a crack. They find a drop of dew. They begin the work of living. They prepare the way for others. Imagine the first grass seed sprouting in a cracked sidewalk. It is brave. It is alone. The tardigrade is that seed. It brings the promise of the forest. It brings the memory of life to the quiet earth. It is a reminder that every great recovery begins with a small, unseen act of persistence. Most tardigrades possess simple eye spots composed of pigment granules. These are not complex eyes like ours. They cannot form images. They cannot see shapes. They only distinguish light from dark. They sense the shadow. They sense the safety of the deep moss. When the light is too bright, they retreat. They seek the comfort of the shade. Think of closing your eyes and turning your face to the sun. You feel the warmth. You know where the light is. You remain in your own dark, quiet world. The tardigrade navigates by this simple contrast. It knows enough to be safe. It knows enough to live. It is a reminder that we do not need to see everything clearly to find our way home. Tardigrades thrive in cryoconite, holes on the surface of glaciers. These are by dust. The dust absorbs the sun. It melts a tiny well in the ice. The tardigrade lives in this private lake. The walls are frozen solid. The wind blows above. Inside the hole, the water is liquid. The water is calm. They feed on the bacteria that gather there. They live on an island of life in a sea of ice. Imagine a small cabin with a fire in the middle of a winter storm. The cold presses against the windows, but inside there is warmth. There is sustenance. This reveals that even in the coldest isolation, life can build a warm and thriving home. A single kilogram of moss may contain more than 20,000 tardigrades. They are crowded together in the green fibers. They bond into one another. They share the same film of water, yet they are invisible to us. You might walk past rays. You might touch a stone and feel only cold rock, but under your hand, a civilization exists. It is busy. It is ancient. It has its own rules. Think of the silence of a library. It seems empty, but the shelves are full of millions of words. The moss is a library of life. You could say that the world is far more crowded than it appears, teeming with invisible lives just beneath our touch. Marine tardigrades live in the interstitial spaces between grains of sand. They do not swim in the open water. They crawl through the gaps. The sand grains are like boulders to them. The spaces between are like canyons. The tide rushes in. The tide rushes out. The stones shift and grind. The tardigrade stays in the safe pockets. It finds the stillness between the heavy weights. Imagine standing in a narrow alley between the tall buildings. The wind is blocked. The noise of the city is muffled. You are protected by the heavy walls. The tardigrade finds peace in the tight squeeze. In this sense, we see that the gaps between things are not empty, but are filled with their own hidden purpose. Certain species can survive exposure to environmental elements. They can withstand alcohol. They can withstand solvents that would dissolve other cells. They enter a state of chemobiosis. They reduce their permeability. They shut the doors of their cells. The fluid washes over them. It surrounds them, but it cannot touch the life inside. And they simply refuse to let the chemistry enter. Think of a diver in a sealed suit swimming through murky water. The water is dark. The water is dirty. But the diver is dry. The diver is breathing clean air. The tardigrade wears its own suit. It keeps the bad air out. It is a reminder that we can remain untainted by our surroundings if we maintain a strong inner seal. Scientific models suggest tardigrades will survive until the sun fades. In billions of years, the sun will expand. It will warm the oceans. It will heat the atmosphere. Humans will be long gone. The great beast will be dust, but the tardigrade may remain. It will hide in the last deep rock. It will shield itself from the final heat. It will be the last witness to the story of Earth. It does not fear the end. It is built to outlast the planet itself. Imagine a stone sitting in a fireplace. The house fades away. The roof collapses. The stone remains. This reveals that the quietest lives are often the ones that endure the longest. Mating in some tardigrade species involves a gentle, external fertilization. The male deposits sperm in the old cuticle of the female as she molts. He does not need to fight. Then, he simply contributes to the clutch of eggs she leaves behind. It is a quiet union. It happens in the discarded skin. A new life begins in the shelter of the old. There is no aggression. There is only the rhythm of the cycle. Think of planting a seed in a garden bed prepared by another. You add your pot. The earth does the rest. The process is shared. It is a reminder that the continuation of life is a softened, cooperative act. The walking pattern of a grade mim insects 500,000 times their size. Physics dictates their movement. They follow the same rules as a fly or an ant. They move their legs in a tripod gait. 3 legs are always on the ground. Stability is guaranteed. They do not stumble. They do not fall. They are locked into the geometry of motion. Watch a clock tick. The gears move in a precise rhythm. The size of the clock does not matter. The time is the same. The tardigrade obeys the universal clockwork. It moves in harmony with the laws of nature. You could say that there is a single, universal rhythm to movement that connects the giant to the very small. Tardigrades do not seek out extreme conditions by choice. They thrive best in mild, wood environments like damp moss or leaf litter. They're extremo tolerant, not extremophilic. They do not enjoy boiling water. They do not seek out radiation. They simply tolerate these things when they have no other option. Think of a heavy storm passing over your house. You do not go outside to dance in the hail. You lock the doors. You stay inside. You wait for the calm to return. The tardigrade does the same. It prefers the gentle dampness of the shade. It only becomes a fortress when the world becomes a challenge. In this sense, we see that strength is not about seeking out difficulty, but about having the deep capacity to endure it when it finds us. Recent studies show tardigrades can survive impacts at speeds of nearly 3,000 kilometers per hour. This is faster than an object moving at high velocity. It can be slammed against, and it can be fired into stone. If the shock is not too great, they survive. They wake up. They walk away. Imagine throwing a small pebble into a still pond. It hits the surface hard. It sinks to the bottom. It remains a pebble. The tardigrade is that hard little stone. It travels through the intensity of motion. It absorbs the blow. It does not break. It keeps its internal order. It holds its secrets tight. This reveals that life can be harder than the rock it lands on, capable of surviving the hardest fall without breaking. While many tardigrades eat plants, some species are active. The Millennium tardigrade has a wide mouth lined with structures. It seeks smaller organisms. It seeks rotifers. It seeks other tardigrades. It is a presence in the microscopic jungle. It moves through the water film. It strikes quickly. Think of the quiet drama in your garden. A spider catches a fly. A bird catches a worm. It happens in silence. It happens without intent to harm. The tardigrade participates in this hunger. It is not just it is a seeker. It takes life to sustain life. It is a reminder that the cycle of consumption exists at every level of reality, and even the smallest peaceful garden is a wilderness to those who live within it. The pastor Johann Go, ECE, first described these creatures in 1773. He looked through his microscope. He saw their lumbering walk. He called them little water bears. He did not see a strange creature. He saw a tiny reflection of the larger world. Imagine looking at a cloud. You see a face. You see a ship. You find the familiar in the abstract. Go-Ease-E found a bear in a drop of water. He gave it a name. He gave it a place in our imagination. He made the invisible visible. You could say that understanding begins with naming, and we make the unknown safe by recognizing ourselves within it. When in the TUN state, a tardigrade's metabolism drops to less than 0.01% of normal. It is indistinguishable from stillness. Instruments cannot detect the spark of life. There is no consumption of oxygen. There is no waste. It is a pause so deep it mimics the stone. Think of a clock that has stopped ticking. The gears are still there. The spring is still wound, but the hands do not move. The tardigrade becomes that stopped clock. It holds the potential for time within it. It holds the future in suspension. It waits for the nudge to start again. This reveals that life is not just a continuous motion, but a state of potential that can exist even in total stillness. Scientists are using the tardigrades, drying secrets to preserve medicine. They are making vaccines that do not need refrigeration. They wrap the delicate medicine in the same sugars the tardigrade uses. The medicine dries out. It becomes safe. It can travel to hot deserts. It can wait on a shelf for years. Think of drying a flower in a heavy book. You keep its form. You keep its color. You save it for a later day. The tardigrade teaches us this art. It shares its survival with us. It helps us save our own lives. It is a generous teacher. In this sense, we see that the solutions to our greatest problems often lie hidden in the smallest corners of nature. Despite their legendary resilience, active tardigrades are fragile creatures. If you poke them while they are walking, they can break. If a snail eats the moss, they are consumed. They are soft. They are squishy. The armor only works when they prepare for the worst. They are not endless gods. They are tiny animals. Think of a sleeping child. They are safe in their dreams, but they need a blanket. They need a roof. The tardigrade needs its water. It needs its specific conditions to thrive. It is mortal. It can be affected. It is a reminder that even the strongest among us have moments of softness, and true resilience is not constant hardness, but the ability to harden when it counts. The existence of the tardigrade challenges our definition of living undead. Biology usually defines life as a continuous set of chemical reactions. The tardigrade stops these reactions. It breaks the rule. It enters a third state. It is a gray area between being and non-being. It hovers on the threshold. Imagine standing in a doorway. You are not in the room. You are not in the hall. You are in between. The tardigrade lives in that doorway. It proves that life is not a binary switch. It is a spectrum. It is a stubborn force. You could say that life is not defined by movement or breath, but by the persistent refusal to disappear. Thousands of dehydrated tardigrades were aboard a lunar lander that landed on the moon in 2019. The spacecraft stopped. It scattered its cargo across the Sea of Serenity. The tardigrades were tilled into the lunar dust. They are still there today. They sit in the gray regolith. There is no air. There is no water. The sun burns them. The night freezes them. They are trapped in their tea, hue, and state. They are waiting for a rescue that may never come. Imagine a seed lying on a concrete pavement. It waits for the rain. It waits for the soil. The tardigrade waits on a dead world. It holds the spark of earth inside it. It remains patient in the absolute quiet. It is a reminder that life can persist even in the most lonely, unforgotten places of the universe. Tardigrades possess intrinsically disordered proteins that lack a fixed three-dimensional shape. In water, these proteins are chaotic, and they are flexible. They wave like seaweed in a current. When the tardigrade dries out, these proteins change. They lock together. They form a solid glass matrix. They stop the movement of the cell. They hold everything in place. Think of water turning into ice. It goes from fluid to solid. It captures the moment in a hard frame. The tardigrade uses this internal shifting to survive. It embraces the chaos when life is good. It builds structure when life is hard. It adapts its very chemistry to the need of the hour. In this sense, we see that flexibility is the ultimate strength, allowing us to harden only when the situation demands it. During the molting process, the tardigrade ejects its own mouth parts. The buccal apparatus is dissolved. The style tears are shed. For a short time, the animal cannot eat. It cannot feed. It is open. It must build a new mouth from scratch. It constructs new tools to access the moss. It reforms the tube to drink the world. Imagine losing your voice to find a better one. Imagine fasting to prepare for a feast. The tardigrade accepts this period of silence. It accepts the hunger. It knows the new tools will be sharper. It knows the future will be easier. This reveals that renewal often requires a release, and we must sometimes let go of what sustains us to grow into something new. Tardigrades have been collected from altitudes above 6,000 meters in the Himalayas. They live where the air is thin. They live where the wind rushes over the stone. The oxygen is scarce. The cold is sharp. Yet they find a patch of lichen on a rock. They make a home on the roof of the world. Think of a climber reaching the summit. They are tired. They are breathing hard. The tardigrade is already there. It has been there for centuries. It does not need equipment. It does not need glory. It simply lives in the high silence. It survives where the giants struggle. You could say that greatness is not about how high you climb, but about how comfortable you can be when you get there. The Italian biologist Lazzaro S.P. Alenzoni named these creatures Il Tardigrado 3 years after their discovery. The name translates to slow stepper. He watched them move under his lens. He saw their deliberate pace. He saw them pausing. He did not name them after their toughness. He named them after their rhythm. Imagine walking down a long country road. You not run. You enjoy the view. You feel the ground. The tardigrade embodies this philosophy. It is defined by its refusal to rush. It is famous for its patience. It carries its name like a badge of honor. It is a reminder that there is dignity in slowness, and a measured pace is often the surest way to reach the end of the journey. The Sleeping Beauty hypothesis suggests that the lifespan of a tardigrade includes only its active time. If it sleeps for 10 years, those years do not count. It does not age while it waits. A creature that lives for a year might exist on Earth for a century. It stretches its life by skipping the empty parts. Think of a movie where you pause the scenes you do not like. You skip the boredom. You play only the joy. The tardigrade dates its own existence. It lives only when the water is fresh. It lives only when the sun is warm. It maximizes the quality of its time. This reveals that life is measured by our moments of awareness, not merely by the ticking of the clock. Tardigrades belong to a superphylum called the Dyoisozoae, which includes insects and crustaceans. This group is defined by the act of molting. They are the animals that shed their armor. They are the brothers of the crab. They are the cousins of the beetle. They are united by the need to cast off the old to make room for the new. Think of a knight taking off a rusted suit. The skin underneath is soft. The body is ready to grow. The tardigrade shares this ancient ritual. It is part of a vast lineage of shedding creatures. It grows by stepping out of its confinement. It leaves its past shells in the dust. In this sense, we see that growth is a universal struggle connecting the smallest crawler to the creatures of the sea. Scientists are using the proteins found in tardigrades to preserve human cells. Usually have a short shelf life. They must be kept warm. They spoil quickly. By using the tardigrade's sugar trick, cells can be dried. They can be stored. They can be rehydrated when needed. The survival of the water bear becomes the survival of the human. Think of a library archiving ancient wisdom. The knowledge is kept safe. It is used to solve new problems. The tardigrade offers its biological secrets to us. It teaches us how to pause time. It helps us heal the affected. It is a reminder that the smallest lives often hold the keys to the greatest salvation, bridging the gap between species to preserve life itself. Fossils of tardigrades are extremely rare, yet specimens found in Cretaceous amber look nearly identical to modern species. Evolution has barely touched them for 100 million years. They found a form that worked. They stopped changing. They locked their design in place. Imagine a fly trapped in golden resin. It is a moment frozen in time. The tardigrade is a living version of that preservation. It walks through the ages without altering its stride. It ignores the pressure to become something else. It stays true to its original blueprint. It remains small. It remains resilient. The world transforms around it, but the water bear refuses to follow the trend. It is a reminder that perfection is not about constant improvement, but about finding a state of being that can withstand the test of time. Successful cryptobiosis requires the drying process to happen gradually. If a tardigrade draws out quickly, it fades. The cells need time to produce the protective sugars. They need time to replace the water. It is slow preparation for the long sleep. It cannot be rushed. Think of the sun setting slowly over a valley. The light fades inch by inch. The shadows lengthen. The world adjusts to the coming night. The tardigrade needs this twilight. It needs the warning of the evaporation. It spins its glass cocoon with care. If the change is sudden, the structure breaks. This reveals that true safety requires preparation, and we must be given the time to adjust before we can survive the harshness of the coming winter. The fourth pair of legs on a tardigrade faces backward, unlike the first three pairs. These legs are used primarily for grasping and anchoring. They are the brakes. They are the hooks. While the front legs pull the creature forward, the back legs secure it to the moss. They prevent the animal from slipping. They hold the ground. Imagine climbing a steep rope. Your hands pull you up. Your feet lock you in place. The tardigrade moves with this dual purpose. It advances, but it stays connected to where it has been. It drags its anchor with it. It is never fully untethered. In this sense, we see that progress requires stability, and we can only move forward if we have something solid to hold on to behind us. The term cryptobiosis is derived from Greek words meaning hidden life. It describes a state where metabolic activity is not detectable. The life is not gone. It is simply buried deep beneath the surface. It is concealed from the instruments of science. It hides in the dry husk. Think of a fire baked in the ashes of a hearth. There are no flames. There is no smoke. But the heat is there. The potential for fire remains. The tardigrade hides its spark in the gray dust. It keeps its secret well. It does not advertise its existence. It waits for the right moment to reveal itself again. You could say that what is unseen is not necessarily absent, and the most vital things are often hidden from plain sight. In some species, mating involves a tactile courtship where the male and female stimulate each other with their sea eerie. They touch. They communicate in the dark water. It is a moment of connection in a vast, lonely world. They are not just colliding particles. They are aware of one another. They seek a partner. Imagine two hands meeting in the dark. It is a signal. It is a comfort. The tardigrade finds intimacy in the forest of algae. It pauses its survival to create new life. It shares a brief union. It ensures the future through a gentle touch. It is a reminder that even in the struggle for survival, there's always room for connection in the quiet with another. During desiccation, the internal organelles of a tardigrade are physically locked into a solid matrix. The moving parts of the cell stop. The mitochondria freeze in place. The nucleus is held rigid. Nothing floats. Nothing drifts. It is a snapshot of a factory where all the machines have been paused. Think of a photograph of a busy street. The cars are stopped. The people are frozen in mid-step. The chaos is organized into a single still image. The tardigrade becomes that image. It maintains the order of life without the motion of life. It prevents the internal collapse. It holds everything where it belongs. This reveals that order is the antidote to chaos, and keeping our internal world structured is the best defense against the void. Freshwater tardigrades differ physiologically from their marine cousins in how they handle salt. The marine species must constantly pump out excess salt. The freshwater species must work to keep their salts in. They are shaped by the chemistry of their home. They spend their energy maintaining a balance against the water that surrounds them. Think of a boat hull. It keeps the ocean out. It keeps the dry air in. It is a constant barrier. The tardigrade works tirelessly at this border. It defines itself by what it excludes. It defines itself by what it keeps. It is a continuous act of definition. In this sense, we see that identity is often a matter of defining who we are by what we choose to let in, what we keep out. Tardigrades have survived every major change that wiped out larger species. The asteroids fell. The volcanoes erupted. The dinosaurs died. The great mammals vanished. The tardigrade slept through the great shift. It was too small to be hit. It was too hardy to starve. It did not compete for the burning forests. It waited in the cracks of the world. Imagine a blade of grass bending under a heavy boot. The boot presses the flower. The grass springs back. The tardigrade is that grass. It yields to the disaster. It does not fight the end of the world. It outlasts it. It is a reminder that humility is the ultimate survival strategy, and sometimes the only way to win the passage against time is to refuse to fight it. Tardigrades can survive in the vacuum of space. Most life requires air to function. These small creatures do not. Imagine the empty black sky above your roof. It is silent there. There is no wind. There is no sound. The tardigrade floats in this emptiness. It curls its body into a tight ball. It stops its own internal clock. It does not struggle against the cold. It simply waits. It allows the vast universe to hold it. Your own breath slows down now. You are safe in your own room. The air around you is still. Like the traveler in the dark, you do not need to do anything. You just exist. You let the gravity of the bed hold you. The cold does not reach you here. It is a reminder that silence is not empty, but a shield that protects what is most fragile and alive. When water is removed, the tardigrade enters a state called. It pushes all moisture from its cells. It retracts its legs. It becomes a dry speck of dust. You can find this dust on the roof of a house. You can find it in dry moss. It sleeps for years. It sleeps for decades. It replaces water with a special sugar. This glass protects it from the inside. It is frozen in time. Think of your own body resting now. Your muscles have loosened. You let go of the day. You are preparing for a long pause. The tardigrade waits for a single drop of rain. That is all it needs to return. Just one drop. Until then, it sleeps without dreaming. In this sense, we see that life does not always movement, but sometimes the patient art of waiting for the right moment to return. A fully grown tardigrade is 0.5 millimeter long. You cannot see it with your eyes. You need a microscope to find it. They walk on 8 small legs. They possess tiny grips. They live in the thin film of water on a leaf. They live in the damp soil. They are all around us. They are invisible companions. They graze on moss like cattle in a field. They move slowly. They do not rush. The world is vast to them. A drop of water is an ocean. A blade of grass is a tower. Think of how small you feel under the stars. It is a comfortable feeling. You do not need to be begged. You do not need to be seen. You could say that there is a quiet dignity in being small, hidden away safely in the folds of the great, wide earth. Tardigrades withstand energy levels 1,000 times higher than humans can. The invisible energy passes through them. It breaks the chains of their code, but they do not perish. They have a protein that shields them. It wraps around their center. It holds them together. Even when broken, they repair. They stitch themselves back together in the dark. It happens quietly. It happens without effort. Your body does this too. When you close your eyes, you heal. The weariness of the day fades away. Your cells mend the tired parts. You breathe out the stress. You breathe in the calm. The repair happens while you drift. You are stronger than you know. This reveals that the deepest strength is often soft, a silent mending that happens only when we stop moving and allow ourselves to rest. The word tardigrade means slow stepper. Early observers called them little water bears. They watch them lumber through the moss. They walk with a heavy gait. They tread water with deliberate steps. They do not swim fast. They paddle through the wet green world. Their rhythm isn't hurried. Watch their slow march in your mind. Left, right, left, right. It is a hypnotic pace. It matches the beat of a resting heart. It matches the slow rise and fall of your chest. There is no destination. There's only the walk. The water supports their weight. They float as they step. They're buoyant. They're calm. It is a reminder that there is no need to run, for we eventually arrive exactly where we are meant to be by simply taking one slow step at a time. Tardigrades can withstand temperatures close to absolute zero. And they also survive heat far above. The extremes of the universe do not break them. When the cold comes, they do not shiver. They simply slow down. They match the temperature of the void. When the heat rises, they do not burn. They wait for the cool air to return. Imagine your own body now. You are neither too hot nor too cold. You are regulated. The blanket creates a perfect climate. You are suspended in comfort. The outside weather does not matter. The wind outside is forgotten. You are insulated. You are preserved. You are keeping your warmth close to your chest. It is a reminder that true stability comes not from fighting the elements, but from finding a quiet center where the outside world cannot reach. Pressure in the deepest ocean wrench can compress solid steel. Tardigrade sorrows, 6 times greater than this. The weight of the world pushes down on them. They do not collapse. Their skin is tough. Their bodies are compact. And they accept the heavy water. They let it press against them. It is a hug from the deep. Think of the weight of your blankets. They press down on you. It is a heavy feeling. It is a safe feeling. You are grounded. You cannot float away. The gravity holds you to the earth. The pressure releases the tension in your shoulders. You sink deeper into the mattress. You are solid. You could say that bearing a heavy weight is not always a burden, but sometimes a way to feel grounded and securely held by the earth. Tardigrade fossils date back 500 million years. They existed long before the dinosaurs walked. They survived 5 global shifts. The earth changed around them. Continents moved. Oceans rose and fell. Mountains shifted into sand. To it all, the water there remained. They are the silent witnesses of history. They do not change. They do not evolve quickly. They stay true to their form. Think of the dust in your room. It is ancient. It settles slowly. Time moves differently for you tonight. The clock does not matter. The years drift away. You are part of this long timeline. You are connected to the past. Your breathing is an ancient rhythm. This reveals that to remain the same in a changing world is a rare and quiet victory, proving that simple things last the longest. Tardigrades possess slender structures called style TS in their mouth. They use these tubes access plant cells. They drink the fluid in. It is a slow meal. They do not hunt. They graze. They take the energy from the green world. They absorb the sun stored in the moss. They are efficient. They waste nothing. Imagine your body resting after a meal. The energy moves through you. It repairs your tired muscles. It fuels your dreams. You are satisfied. You need nothing more. The hunger is going. You are full of life. You are quiet. The processes at your work without your command. They hum softly. It is a reminder that we are sustained by the world around us, and that rest is the time when we turn that sustenance into strength. As they grow, tardigrades release their outer skin. They crawl out of the old shell. They leave the tight casing behind. It floats away in the water. They are soft and new underneath. Sometimes they leave their eggs inside the old skin. It becomes a protective case. It is a cycle of renewal. Think of taking off your clothes at the end of the day. You remove the layers. You are shedding the day. You are leaving the old self at the door. You step into the comfort of the bed. You are free of the restriction. You are loose. Your skin can breathe. You are ready to begin again. You could say that growth requires us to cast off what no longer fits, leaving the past behind to make room for the new. In the state of suspended animation, their metabolism drops to near zero. The engine of life pauses. They do not consume oxygen. They do not age. They exist between living and unliving. It is a deep pause. It is a long silence. They hover in the gray space. They preserve their energy. They wait for better days. Feel your own heart rate now. It is slowing down. It is barely there. Your energy is low. You are entering your own hibernation. The mind goes quiet. The thoughts slow down. You are conserving yourself. You are shutting down the machines. In this sense, we see that pausing is not the end of the journey, but a necessary stillness that allows life to endure through the long, dark night. Scientists find tardigrades on every continent on Earth. They live under the ice of Antarctica. They live in the rainforests. They live in the sand of the desert. They are universal travelers, yet they never leave their home. Their home is the moss. Their home is the dampness. Wherever they go, they are comfortable. They adapt the location. They make the world their own. Think of where you are right now. You are in your place. You are exactly where you belong. The room surrounds you. The walls protect you. You do not need to be anywhere else. You are settled. You are home. This reveals that comfort is not about the location, but about the ability to find peace and stillness wherever we happen to rest. Many species of tardigrades are female only. They reproduce without a partner. They lay eggs that are clones of themselves. Life continues in solitude. They do not need another to survive. They are complete on their own. The cycle remains unbroken. The lineage is a straight line. It is a quiet independence. Think of yourself in the dark. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You are complete. You have your thoughts. You have your breath. You have your dreams. You are a whole universe contained in one body. You do not need anything from the outside right now. You are self-sufficient. You are enough. It is a reminder that solitude is not an empty state, but a space where we can feel the fullness of our own existence. Specific proteins within the tardigrade turn its liquid insides into a solid glass. This unique substance locks every cell in place. It prevents the internal machinery from falling apart. It acts like amber preserving a leaf. The movement of life is halted. The movement inside stops. There is no decay here. Everything is held perfectly still. Think of a photograph on a shelf. It freezes a moment in time. Nothing changes in the image. It is safe from the passing years. Your mind is doing this now. You are freezing this moment of peace. You are locking out the noise. You are preserving this feeling of calm. You are holding it close. It is a reminder that sometimes the best way to endure the chaos is to simply become still, turning our inner world into a quiet, unbreakable sanctuary. The eggs of many tardigrade species are covered in elaborate points and patterns. These microscopic spheres look like strange stars. They lie hidden in the dirt. They are buried in the deep moss. No one sees their geometry. They wait in the dark for the right time to open. They are protected by their strange beauty. Think of the ideas resting in your mind. They are complex. They are unique to you. They are hidden from the world. You keep them safe inside. They are waiting for the morning. For now, they are just shapes in the dark. They are seeds of thought. They are sleeping. You watch them drift by. You could say that the most beautiful things are oft unkept secret, waiting patiently in the dark till they are ready to bloom. Tardigrades possess no lungs and no veins for blood. They breathe through their entire skin. The oxygen simply passes into them. The fluid inside them moves only when they move. It is a passive system. They do not pump air. They do not force the flow. They let the environment enter them. Imagine the air in your room. It touches your skin. It surrounds you. You do not need to work to breathe. The air comes to you. It fills your lungs without effort. The oxygen travels through you. It is a gentle exchange. You are open to the room. You are connected to the space. You breathe in the silence. In this sense, we see that life does not always require force, but often relies on a gentle permeability, allowing the world to sustain us effortlessly. The nervous system of the water bear is shaped like a ladder. A small cluster of neurons sits at the head. 2 cords run down the length of the body. It is a simple design. It carries basic signals. Eat. Rest. There is no complex noise. There is no anxiety in the wires. Think of your own spine now. It rests against the bed. It is the central line of your body. It holds you together. The signals in your nerves are quieting down. The noise of the day is fading. The messages are simple. You are safe. You are one. You are horizontal. This reveals that when we strip away the noise of complex thoughts, we find a simple structure underneath that supports us and tells us. Single pigment spots serve as the eyes of the tardigrade. They cannot see shapes or colors. They only sense the presence of light. When the light is too bright, they turn away. They seek the shadow. They prefer the damp dimmings of the moss. They find safety in the dark. Close your eyes now. You shut out the images. You shut out the colors. You are like the water bear seeking the shade. The darkness is comfortable. It is soft on the eyes. It is a blanket for the mind. You do not need to see anything right now. The visual world is gone. You are left with the feeling of rest. You could say that closing the eyes to the world is sometimes a gift, allowing us to retreat into the soothing shadow where true rest begins. Certain species of tardigrades live in the sediment of the deep ocean floor. The sunlight never reaches this place. It is a world of eternal night. The water is cold and still. They burrow into the soft mud. They live their whole lives in the quiet dark. They are untouched by the storms above. The waves do not reach them. Imagine sinking into that depth. You are going down past the light, past the noise. You settle into the soft bottom. The silence is thick here. It wraps around you. You are far away from the surface. You are far away from the sun. You are deep in the dream. It is a reminder that deep down, beneath the turbulence of the surface, there is a place of permanent stillness where nothing can disturb the peace. High tardigrade in its dried state does not age. The biological clock stops ticking. A year means nothing to it. A decade passes like a second. It effectively travels through time by standing still. It bypasses the rules of time. It wakes up exactly as young as it was before. Think of the space between falling asleep and waking up. There is no time there. The hours vanish. You close your eyes and the night disappears. You travel forward without moving. You exist outside of the clock. You are free from the countdown. Let yourself slip into that timeless gap. Let the hours dissolve. You are floating in the void. This reveals that time is not a master we must obey, but a river we can step out of, finding refuge in the timeless pause of deep sleep. Tardigrades are often the first life forms to appear on new volcanic islands. They arrive on the wind. They land on the barren rock. The ground is empty and black. They find a crack. And they find moisture. They begin the slow work of living. They bring life to the stillness. They are the pioneers of the empty spaces. Think of your mind when you wake. It will be a blank slate. The worries of yesterday will be ash. You will start fresh. You will build the day again. But for now, you are just the empty rock. You are waiting for the rain. You are waiting for the dawn. It is a reminder that no matter how empty the landscape seems, life always finds a way to return, bringing green to the gray and hope to the silence. Tardigrades possess a genome packed with 4 DNA from bacterium plants. They absorb the genetic material of the world around them. They weave the environment into their own code. They are a patchwork of their history. They are made of everything they have touched. Think of your own mind right now. You are made of the conversations you had today. You are made of the meals you ate. You are made of the things you saw. These fragments are settling into place. They are becoming part of you. The day is being written into your memory. It is a quiet integration. You are absorbing the world. You are making it yours. In this sense, we see that we are not separate from the world, but a collection of all the moments that have ever touched us. Thousands of dehydrated tardigrades currently rest on the surface of the moon. High lunar landers settled and left them there. They sit in the gray dust. They look up at the dark sky. The earth is a blue marble far away. They are perfectly preserved in the silence of space. They are the loneliest travelers. Imagine you are sitting with them. The silence is absolute. There is no sound of traffic. There is no sound of wind. There is only a vast black ceiling. You are small. You are distant from your problems. The noise of the earth cannot reach you here. It is a reminder that sometimes we must distance ourselves from the noise of our lives to truly understand how small and manageable our worries actually are. Active tardigrades require a thin film of water to move. Without this layer of moisture, they are stranded. They cannot walk on dry ground. They do not resist this limitation. They simply stop. They accept the stillness. They wait for the environment to change. Think of your own limitations tonight. You cannot do any more work. You cannot solve any more problems. The day is dried up. The resources are gone. You must stop moving. You must wait for the new energy of the morning. Lie still in the dry quiet of the night. Do not struggle against the pause. It is a natural halt. You could say that there is wisdom in knowing when to stop and trusting that the flow will eventually return to carry us forward. Instead of blood, a fluid called hemolymph fills the tardigrade's body. It creates a heterostotic skeleton. The pressure of the fluid gives them shape. It supports them from the inside. There are no hard bones to break. There is only the gentle pressure of liquid. Imagine a warm fluid filling your limbs. It is heavy and slow. It pushes out the tension. It smooths out the knots. You are held up by this internal ocean. It washes over your tired joints. It is a soft support. You are liquid inside. You are adapting to the shape of the bed. This reveals that true strength does not always require a rigid structure, but can come from a fluid adaptability that supports us from deep within. Curved hooks allow the tardigrade to cling to wet moss during a storm. The water rushes past them. The turbulence tries to wash them away, but they hold on. They anchor themselves to the green threads. They stay put while the world spins. They are steadfast. Think of your grip on reality. Sometimes the day is stormy. Sometimes the world rushes too fast. But you are here. You are anchored to this bed. You are holding on to this moment of calm. The storm is outside. You are safe inside. You are not moving. You have found your grip. It is a reminder that when the world becomes chaotic, all we need is one small anchor to keep us safe and steady until the weather clears. The bodies of many tardigrades are almost entirely transparent. You can see the food digesting in their stomachs. You can see the eggs waiting to be laid. Nothing is hidden. Light passes right through them. They cast almost no shadow. They are honest creatures. They have no secrets. Imagine becoming transparent yourself. The walls you built are fading. The tension you are holding is dissolving. You are clear. The light of the room passes through you. There is nothing heavy left to hide. You are open. You are weightless. You are pure existence. In this sense, we see that letting go of our defenses allows us to become light, blending seamlessly into the peace of the surroundings. Cryptobiosis is the scientific term for the hidden life of the tardigrade. It is a state where life is present but undetectable. To the observer, the creature looks still, but the spark remains. It is buried deep. It is a secret kept by the body. Think of your own potential as you sleep. You are not doing anything. You look like you are gone, but the potential for tomorrow is inside you. The dreams are waiting. The strength is building. It is hidden life. It is recharging in the dark. It does not need to be seen to be real. This reveals that the most important processes often happen in the unseen arc, where the spark of life is quietly preserved for the future. The tardigrade does not possess tools to face its challenges. It has no sharpness. It has no toxins. It survives by outlasting the threat. It curls into a ball. It becomes too hard to consume. It becomes too dry to digest. It outlasts the challenger by refusing to engage. It wins by waiting. Think of the worries that approach you. Do not fight them. Do not argue with them. Just curl up. Make your mind impenetrable. Let the worries spin their force on your silence. You are safe in your shell. You are outlasting the stress. You are winning by doing nothing. You could say that the greatest defense is not to attack, but to withdraw into a place of peace where nothing can touch you. Moss acts as a sponge that holds water for the tardigrade. These plants create a vast green forest for the microscopic bears. The ground yields under their feet. It is soft. It is damp. It is cool. The tardigrade moves through this wet softness. It is cushioned on all sides. Imagine your head hitting the pillow now. It is soft like the moss. It absorbs the weight of your head. You sink into it. The fibers hold you. It is a gentle landing. The hardness of the world is gone. You are cushioned. You are cradled. You are surrounded by softness. In this sense, we see that finding a soft place to land is the first step toward leaving the hard ground of the day behind. Tiny sensory bristles cover the body of the tardigrade. These hairs detect changes in the water pressure. They feel the currents. They do not need to look to know. They trust their sense of touch. They navigate by feeling the walls of their world. Focus on your skin now. Feel the sheets against your legs. Feel the air on your face. You do not need to open your eyes to know you are safe. You can feel the boundaries of the bed. You are grounded by touch. The physical world holds you. It is a reminder that we do not always need to see the path ahead, as long as we can feel the safety of the present moment. Tardigrades are poor swimmers. They do not glide effortlessly like fish. They paddle awkwardly through the water. They tumble. They bump into obstacles. They do not care about grace. They simply move forward. They are clumsy but effective. Think of your own thoughts right now. They are drifting. They are not sharp. They are not precise. That is okay. You do not need to be sharp right now. Let your mind tumble. Let your thoughts be slow and uncoordinated. You are releasing the need for control. You are floating without direction. You could say that perfection is a burden we can lay down, allowing ourselves to simply drift without judgment or aim. Some tardigrades lay their eggs inside their own shed skin. The old body becomes a protective capsule. It shields the young from the outside world. It is a second layer of defense. It creates a safe pocket in the vast ocean. Imagine pulling the blanket up to your chin. You are adding the layer. You are hiding inside the fabric. The world is outside the blanket. You are inside. It is a warm cocoon. Nothing can get in. You are wrapped in safety. You are contained. The air inside is warm. This reveals that we all need a protective shell, soft barrier that separates our fragile peace from the noise of the world. Trehalose is a sugar that replaces water in the tardigrade cells. It forms a glass-like structure inside them. It stops the cell from collapsing. It provides a rigid support. It holds the shape when the life is paused. It is a solid preservation. Think of the stillness in your room. It is solidifying. The movement of the day is turning into the order of the night. The structure of the room holds you. The routine holds you. You are being preserved by the ritual of sleep. You are safe in this structure. Nothing is moving. It is a reminder that relying on a strong internal structure allows us to weather the dry seasons until the rain returns. An active tardigrade lives for only a few months, but a dormant one lives for decades. They stretch their existence by doing nothing. They lengthen their life by stopping. They expand time by engaging with the void. Think of the night ahead of you. It is long. It is stretching out. There is no rush to wake up. You have hours and hours. You are expanding the night by resting. You are making the time last. The clock slows down when you close your eyes. You are stealing time back. In this sense, we see that we gain more life, not by rushing through it, but by stopping to let the quiet moments expand. Despite their size, tardigrades have a brain, a stomach, and nerves. They are a complete universe in a speck of dust. They are complex. They are intricate. They are fully formed. Eyes does not determine completeness. Think of your closed eyes. The room is dark, but inside your mind, there is a whole world. There are memories. There are landscapes. You are a universe contained in a body. You are vast on the inside. You do not need to move to explore this world. You just need to look inward. You could say that true vastness is not measured in miles, but in the depth of the quiet world we carry within us. The name water bear comes from their lumbering walk. They look like tiny wanderers, but they are gentle grazers. They are strong but not forceful. They are tough but not hasty. They possess a quiet power. Think of your own strength now. You are tired, but you are still strong. You have survived the day. You are resting like a bear in winter. You are powerful even when you are sleeping. Your strength is recharging. You do not need to prove it to anyone right now. It is just there. This reveals that true power is not always loud or active, but often lies in the quiet confidence of simply existing. Certain tardigrades glow a bright blue under ultraviolet light. They absorb the intense energy. They transform the strong energy. They release it as a harmless blue glow. They turn the intensity into a soft light. They wear a shield of color. Imagine a shield around your bed right now. The stress of the day hits it. The worry hits it. But the shield transforms then. It turns the noise into a soft hum. It turns the tension into a blue light. You are glowing in the dark. You are protected by your own calm. The heavy energy cannot reach you here. It is a reminder that we have the power to transmute the harshness of the world into a quiet, protective light that keeps us safe. The outer skin of the tardigrade is built in layers. It is made of strong material called chitin. It is flexible. It allows them to bend. It allows them to grow. But it stops the rough edges of the world. It is a suit of soft armor. Think of the layers of your blanket. They are heavy. They are woven tight. They cover your skin. And they separate you from the cold air. You are wrapped in a soft shell. You are armored in comfort. The world cannot scratch you here. You are tucked in. In this sense, we see that true protection is not always hard and rigid, but often comes in the form of soft, multi-layered warmth. And now that the water bear is a telescopic tube, it slides out to reach food. It pulls back when it is done. It is a simple tool. It does not take more than it can reach. It stays close to the body. It conserves. Think of your own arms now. They are heavy by your side. You are not stretching for anything. You are pulling your energy back. You are keeping your resources close. You are not chasing the world. You are centered. You are complete. You could say that peace comes when we stop reaching for what is far away and settle contentedly into the space we already occupy. Scientists believe tardigrades will exist until the sun fades. They are the final observers. They will watch the light fade. They will remain when the mountains are gone. They are the keepers of the earth. They represent the entrance of life. Think of the durability of this moment. The night feels long. The silence feels eternal. It is a solid block of time. You are safe in this permanence. The worries of the day are temporary. The peace of the night is long. You are part of the timeline. This reveals that while everything else changes and fades, the deep silence of the universe remains a constant companion to our rest. Each leg of the tardigrade ends in curved hooks. They are small grips. They grip the rough surface of the moss. They prevent the creature from drifting away. They hold tight in the current. They are anchored. Imagine holding a smooth stone in your hand. You squeeze it gently. It grounds you. It keeps your hand still. You are holding onto the bed. You are holding on to sleep. You are not slipping. You are secure. The gravity holds you down. You are fixed in place. It is a reminder that when the world tries to pull us in different directions, we find strength by holding fast to the quiet center of our own existence. The digestive system of the tardigrade creates a wave motion. It pushes nourishment through the body. It is a rhythmic pulse. It happens without thought. It happens deep inside. The work is automatic. It is slow and steady. Feel your own stomach now. It is settling. The food of the day is gone. The energy is stored. The internal work is slowing down. There is a gentle rhythm in your core. It is the hum of life. You are a quiet machine. In this sense, we see that the body has its own ancient wisdom, managing the essentials of life while the mind is free to drift into sleep. The fluids in the tardigrade mix only when the body moves. There is no pump. There is no beating heart forcing the flow. The liquid swashes gently. It follows the movement of the animal. It is a passive circulation. It is effortless. Think of your own blood slowing down. The pressure drops. The rushing stops. You are not forcing anything. You are lying still. The flow is gentle. The river inside you is calm. You are moving with the current of the night. You are drifting downstream. You could say that life does not always need to be driven by force, but can flourish by simply surrendering to the natural flow of the moment. Rehydration happens in minutes for the dormant tardigrade. The dry shell touches water. It swells instantly. The legs unfold. The dormant heart begins to beat. The silent singe. Life fills the vessel again. Think of waking from a deep nap. The world rushes back in. But not yet. Right now, you are in the phase before the water comes. You are in the dry, safe pause. You are waiting for the morning rain. You are preserving your strength. The return will happen tomorrow. For now, you rest. This reveals that no matter how long the sleep, the capacity to wake and begin again is always waiting within us, safe and ready for the dawn. Tardigrades are born with the exact number of cells they will have for their entire lives. They do not grow by creating new cells. They simply expand the ones they already possess. They are complete from the very beginning. There is no need to add anything new. Think of your own body resting in the dark. You are finished with the day. You do not need to add more to yourself right now. You do not need to become more than you are. You are expanding into the space of the bed. You are filling the moment with your presence. You are whole. You are enough. It is a reminder that we do not always need to change to grow, but simply need to inhabit the space we have been given more fully. When oxygen levels drop to low, the tardigrade does not fade. It fills itself with water and becomes rigid. It enters a state called an oxybiosis. It swells up like a microscopic balloon. It floats without moving. It waits for the air to return. It does not struggle against the silence. It becomes a still object. Imagine holding your breath underwater. You feel the buoyancy. You feel the lightness. You are suspended. You are not struggling to breathe. You are just floating. The worry dissolves. The stillness takes over. You are waiting for the tide to turn. This reveals that when the resources we need are gone, the wisest action is often to stop struggling and let the current carry us until the air returns. Scientists once revived a tardigrade that had been frozen in ice for 30 years. It remained a motionless speck for 3 decades. The world changed around it. The seasons cycled 30 times, but inside the ice, the spark remained. When the ice melted, it simply walked away. It continued its life as if no time had passed. Think of the deep winter sleep you are entering. It is a long pause. It preserves you. The hours will melt away by morning. You will wake up fresh. The time lost is not gone. It is stored. You could say that patience is the ultimate preserver, keeping our vitality safe through the longest and coldest winters. Inside the throat of the tardigrade is a muscular bulb. It acts as a suction pump to draw in food. It pulses with a steady rhythm. It is the engine of their nourishment. It works quietly in the background. It ensures they are fed. It does not speed up. It does not stall. Listen to the sound of your own breath. In, out, in, out. It is a pump that keeps you alive. You do not have to tell it to work. It nurtures you while you drift. It is a faithful rhythm. It is a constant companion. In this sense, we see that the most essential parts of our lives are often the ones that work silently, unrhythmically without our command. To survive impurities in the water, the tardigrade forms a protective shell. It builds a thick, multi-layered wall around itself. It's different from the dry TUN. This is a fortress against harshness. It seals off the outside world completely. It retreats deep into its own center. It waits for the water to clear. Visualize building a wall of soft pillows around you. You are fortifying your position. The negativity of the world is outside the wall. You are inside the fortress. The air here is clean. The space is pure. You are untouched. It is a reminder that when the environment becomes toxic, we have the right to close the gates and retreat into the safety of our own inner sanctuary. To a single bacterium, a tardigrade is a colossal giant. They are the leviathanness of the microcosm. They move like mountains through the moss. Their steps shake the microscopic ground. They are massive to the life beneath them. Size is only a matter of perspective. Think of how small you feel under the stars. Now think of how big you are to your own selves. You are a galaxy to them. You are their entire universe. You are vast. You are limitless. You contain multitudes. This reveals that we are not insignificant specks, but massive, complex worlds capable of holding infinite possibilities within us. Before pairing, some species of tardigrade stimulate each other with their sensory bristles. They touch gently. It is a soft communication. They acknowledge the presence of another. It is a moment of connection in the vast moss forest. They are not alone in the dark. Feel the connection of your body to the bed. The sheets touch your skin. The pillow touches your cheek. It is a gentle pressure. You are being held. You are not floating in a void. You are connected to the physical world. The earth is supporting you. You could say that touch is the most honest language, reminding us that we are grounded and supported even in the deepest silence. Some theories suggest tardigrades could survive a journey through space on a meteor. They are the potential seeds of life for other planets. They are the cosmic travelers. They belong to the stars as much as the earth. They are citizens of the void. Imagine yourself drifting among the constellations. You are weightless. You are traveling between worlds. The silence of space is a comfort. It is not empty. It is peaceful. You are a voyager of the night. You are sailing through the dreams. You are safe in the vastness. It is a reminder that our true home is not just a place on a map, but the vast and quiet peace that stretches out in every direction. Salinity triggers a protective response in the tardigrade. If the water becomes too salty, it tries to draw moisture out of their cells. The tardigrade resists this pull. It curls tight to minimize its surface area. It becomes a closed fortress. It refuses to let the environment drain it. The salt cannot enter. The water cannot leave. Think of the demands of the world around you. They try to pull your energy out. They try to drain your reserves. But you are closing up now. You are minimizing your exposure. You are keeping your energy inside. The world can be salty and harsh, but it stays outside. You are sealed. It is a reminder that we have the power to close our doors to the draining forces of the world, keeping our inner well fresh and full. The DS-up protein is a substance found only in tardigrades. It binds directly to their DNA strands. It wraps around the delicate spiral. It acts as a physical shield against change. It holds the genetic code together when energy intensifies. It is a molecular hug. It prevents the library of life from scattering. Imagine a warm blanket wrapping around your own core. It holds you together. It suppresses the changes of the day. It keeps your thoughts from scattering. You are held tight. You are reinforced from the very center. The chaotic energy passes over you. You remain intact. In this sense, we see that the strongest protection is often a gentle embrace that holds our most fragile parts together against the storm. Pastor Yohango Ise first discovered these creatures in 73. He looked through a simple microscope at a drop of water. He expected nothing. He found a bear. He found a whole new world in a speck of dust. He saw the invisible life teeming in the silence. He watched them walk. He was the first witness to their slow march. Think of the things you miss when you move. Think of the details in your own room, the texture of the blanket, the sound of the air, the shadow in the wall. They are there. They are waiting for you to notice. You could say that the world is full of hidden wonders that reveal themselves only when we slow down enough to look. Some species of tardigrades are tiny foragers. They seek microscopic worms called nematodes. They are slow, but they are determined. They grasp the source with their grips. They do not run. They simply hold on. They absorb the strength of the other. It is a quiet transfer of energy in the dark moss. Nature is a cycle of giving in. Think of the food you ate today. It was life. Now it is part of you. It is fueling your sleep. It is repairing your body. The cycle is complete. You are satisfied. You are nourished. This reveals that we are part of a vast, interconnected web where energy is never lost, but simply passed from one form to another in a quiet, eternal rhythm. Tardigrades often release residue only when they molt. They hold onto the remnants of their digestion for a long time. When they shed their skin, they leave the residue behind in the old shell. They walk away clean. They walk away new. The past is trapped in the cast-off skin. It does not follow them. Imagine the clutter in your mind, the regrets, the mistakes, the heavy thoughts. You are shedding them tonight. You are leaving them in the old skin of yesterday. You are stepping out of that shell. You are moving forward light and clean. It is a reminder that we can choose to leave our burdens behind, stepping free into the future without the heavy weight of the past. During dormancy, the gene expression and the tardigrade stops almost completely. The instructions that run the body fall silent. The biological factory shuts down. No orders are given. No proteins are built. The noise of the system drops to zero. It is a total biological silence. It is a deep rest without dreams. Listen to the silence in your head. The voice that plans is quiet. The voice that worries is gone. The instructions have stopped. You are not building anything right now. You are just existing. The machinery is cold. It is resting. In this sense, we see that true rest requires us to turn off the internal narrator, allowing the silence to settle into the deepest parts of our mind. Tardigrades possess perfect bilateral symmetry. The left side of their body is a mirror image of the right. They are balanced. They are even. They are not lopsided. This balance helps them walk through the uneven moss. They distribute their weight equally. They are stable in a chaotic world. Feel the symmetry of your own body. Your left arm, your right arm, your left leg, your right leg. You are balanced on the bed. You are centered. The weight is even. You are not leaning. You are not falling. You are a structure of peace. You could say that finding our physical center is the first to finding the emotional balance that leads to deep and restorative sleep. Despite their legendary resilience, tardigrades are not immortal. They eventually fade away. They return to the elements. They become part of the moss. Except the end of their watch. They do not fight final sleep. They have survived the impossible, but they bow to time. There is a grace in this limit. It makes their life precious. Think of this day coming to an end. It is gone. It will not return. You let it go. You accept the closure. You do not hold on to the hours. You let them drift into the past. It is peaceful. It is finished. This reveals that there is a profound peace in accepting the end of things, knowing that every finish line is simply a place to rest. And so, we drift to the end of our quiet journey through the microscopic universe of the tardigrade. These tiny wanderers, nestled in moss and mist, possess a fortitude that rivals the stars themselves. They teach us the ancient wisdom of the T-Win state, the ability to curl inward when life feels overwhelming, and trust that the waters of peace will flow again. Find comfort in this resilience. Know that survival does not always mean fighting. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply rest, safe in the knowledge that you are built to weather any storm. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. There is nothing left to analyze, nothing left to do. Just breathe. Let your eyes grow heavy, sinking deeper into the dark. Let the tiny floating water bear cradle your thoughts in suspended silence. Good night.